The war had been going on for so long that most beings in the galaxy could not even remember when it had started. Three great powers controlled everything. The Zephyrian Empire ruled from the center of the galaxy. Their cities were made of pure light, floating silently in the void of space. They believed themselves to be the oldest and wisest race ever born among the stars. The Corvan Federation spread across the outer rim like a living plague. Billions of insect-like creatures, all connected by a single hive mind, acting as one perfect organism. And then there was the Nexari Collective, masters of trade and secrets. Their massive tentacled ships traveled between worlds, carrying goods, information, and sometimes things far more dangerous. For 800 years, these three powers had fought wars, formed alliances, betrayed each other, and traded across the galaxy. None of them had ever been able to completely defeat the others. The galaxy was locked in an endless cycle of war and peace, a dance that never truly changed anything. But on this day, far from the great empires, something unexpected was about to happen. High Commander Zether of the Corvan Third Fleet did not care about ancient politics. His fleet needed supplies, and his scouts had discovered something interesting. A small blue-green world orbiting a quiet yellow star in a forgotten corner of space. Primitive. Isolated. Vulnerable. Perfect. The planet shows clear signs of civilization, reported the scanning officer through the hive-mind connection. But their technology is extremely primitive. No energy shields. No plasma weapons. They still burn chemical fuels for power. Zether clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. How many ships do they have in space? Only a few small stations and several patrol vessels around their planet. None pose any threat. Approval flowed through the hive mind like a wave. This would be easy. A quick raid. A few resources. Perhaps a new slave species to study. Send the advanced scouts, Zether ordered. Full attack formation. We take their orbital stations first, then we land. The invasion begins. 12 Corvan warships moved toward the planet. Each ship was nearly half a mile long, covered in black armored plates scarred by centuries of war. Their plasma weapons had destroyed entire alien fleets across the galaxy. The inhabitants of this world had never seen anything like them. The planet was called Earth. Humanity's response. Captain Sarah Morrison stood on the bridge of Earth's newest battleship, the UES Defiance. On her screen, 12 unknown alien vessels appeared like dark shadows drifting through space. Her heart began to race. They had trained for this possibility for years. But no one truly believed it would happen. 12 ships incoming, reported the weapons officer. Unknown design. They're larger than anything in our database. Communications. No response, Captain. They're ignoring every signal. Sarah studied the tactical display. The alien ships were moving in perfect formation, like dancers performing a routine they had practiced for centuries. Earth's defense fleet had only 8 ships, and they were much smaller. Still, retreat was not an option. All ships, Morrison said calmly, form a defensive line around Station Alpha. Do not let them reach the planet. The UES Defiance and the rest of Earth's fleet accelerated to intercept. Human ships were not elegant. They were built for survival, powered by nuclear engines, armed with massive railguns capable of launching metal projectiles at incredible speeds, protected by thick asteroid alloy armor. But they had never been tested in a real war. Until now. The first shots. Zether watched the primitive ships move into defensive formation. Look at them, he transmitted to his fleet. They believe those tiny vessels can stop us. Should we demand their surrender? Asked a tactical officer. No, Zether replied coldly. We destroy them quickly. The hive mind has no time for games. The Corvan fleet opened fire. Blazing beams of superheated plasma erupted across space, weapons that had melted the armor of hundreds of enemy fleets. The humans should have been vaporized instantly. But something strange happened. The human ships moved. Not slowly. Not predictably. They turned violently, performing maneuvers that seemed impossible. Plasma beams missed them by hundreds of meters. What are they doing? Zether demanded. Before anyone could answer, the human fleet fired back. But not with energy weapons. Instead, their railguns launched solid metal slugs at a significant fraction of the speed of light. One of the projectiles slammed into the lead Corvan ship. It punched straight through the alien armor, and the massive vessel exploded. The bridge fell silent. "Impossible," whispered the scanning officer. "Our armor should have stopped primitive weapons like that." "Human tactics. Fire again," Zethar ordered. But the humans were already moving. Their ships split apart, each one flying a completely different trajectory. Some dove toward Earth, using the planet's gravity to increase their speed. Others climbed above the Corvan fleet and attacked from unexpected angles. They moved like predators. Independent, chaotic, unpredictable, yet somehow perfectly coordinated. Inside the Defiance, Morrison felt the crushing force of acceleration as the ship executed a brutal turn. Without their new inertial suits, the crew would have been crushed instantly. "Target the largest ship in the center," she ordered. Full rail gun spread. 6 projectiles fired. They struck the Corvan flagship simultaneously. The alien vessel shuddered violently. Atmosphere vented into space. But it didn't explode. Its armor was too thick. "Switch to nuclear warheads," Morrison said. The weapons officer hesitated. "Captain, we're too close." "Trust me." A single missile launched from the Defiance. Seconds later it detonated beside the damaged flagship. The human ship was already accelerating away at maximum speed. The nuclear blast engulfed the alien vessel. The Corvan flagship cracked apart like a shattered shell. The aftermath. Zethar floated in space inside a small escape pod. Around him, the remains of his once powerful fleet drifted as burning debris. In less than 1 hour, the humans had destroyed 11 of his 12 ships. He couldn't understand it. The Corvan had fought wars across the galaxy. They knew every tactic, every weapon, every strategy. Yet these humans fought completely differently. They used their planet's gravity as a weapon. They fired physical projectiles instead of energy beams. Their ships fought independently instead of in rigid formations. They even used nuclear explosions at close range, something that should have destroyed their own fleet. But the strangest thing of all, they seemed to enjoy the chaos. Corvan warriors fought with perfect order through the hive mind. Humans fought like individual hunters, every captain making their own decisions. Yet somehow, they worked together flawlessly. First contact. A human ship approached Zethar's escape pod. He prepared to die with honor. Instead, they rescued him. The aliens wanted to talk. Captain Morrison studied the insect-like creature sitting across from her in the meeting room. It was nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and shining compound eyes. Its armored shell was black and silver, and it carried the faint smell of machine oil. "You speak our language," she said, surprised. "The hive mind learns quickly," Zethar replied through a translator. "We intercept communications. Your language was simple." Morrison smirked slightly. "Simple enough to kick your fleet's ass." Zethar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "You fight differently from any species we have encountered," he said. "Why don't you use energy weapons?" "Because these work better." Morrison pointed to a railgun diagram on the screen. Plasma spreads out over distance. It can be blocked by magnetic shields. She tapped the display. But a chunk of metal moving at 30% the speed of light doesn't care about shields. "And the nuclear weapons?" Zethar asked quietly. "We built our ships to survive them," Morrison replied. "You didn't." For a long moment, Zethar remained silent. Across the hive mind, he could feel something spreading among his people. Not anger, not rage, but something far more dangerous. Fear. Because the Corvan had just discovered something terrifying about humanity. Humans were not the most advanced species in the galaxy, but they might be the most dangerous. The Corvan Federation had rules for warfare, rules that had worked perfectly for centuries. Humans, it seemed, had decided to ignore all of them. Finally, Zethar asked the question that had been burning in his mind. What do you want from me? Captain Morrison folded her arms. Information. Who are you? Where do you come from? And why did you attack us? Zephyr straightened slightly. I am High Commander Zephyr of the Corvan Federation. We came seeking supplies and easily conquered territory. Your world appeared primitive and defenseless. Morrison walked slowly to the observation window. Below them, Earth glowed blue and white against the darkness of space. Well, she said calmly, you were half right. She turned back toward the alien commander. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take a message back to your people. Zephyr listened carefully. Tell them that Earth is not interested in being conquered, enslaved, or pushed around. If they want to talk, they can send diplomats. Her expression hardened. If they want to fight, they can send fleets. She paused for a moment. But if they attack our civilians again, we'll find their home worlds and return the favor. Zephyr shook his head urgently. You do not understand. The Corvan Federation controls thousands of worlds. Our fleets number in the millions of ships. You cannot fight us all. Morrison shrugged slightly. Maybe not. Then she smiled. But we'll sure as hell try. She leaned forward slightly. And based on today's results, I think we'll do better than you expect. She walked back to the tactical screen. There's something else you should know. She tapped the display, bringing up a schematic of the human fleet. This isn't even our best fleet. These ships were built 5 years ago. The screen shifted, revealing larger, more advanced designs. We've already built newer models that make these look like toys. And we're building more every day. For the first time since the battle began, Zephyr felt something crawl through his exoskeleton like ice. The humans had destroyed his fleet. With outdated ships. What kind of species had the Corvan Federation just discovered? Finally he nodded slowly. I will deliver your message. Good, Morrison replied. Then she added one final thought. Oh, and one more thing. She smiled again, but there was no warmth in it. Tell your leaders something about humans. Zephyr waited. Humans don't like bullies. And we have a very long memory for people who hurt our friends. The news spreads across the galaxy. 3 days later, Zephyr's escape pod was recovered by a Corvan patrol ship near the edge of human space. His report shook the Corvan High Command. From there, the news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For 8 centuries, the balance of power had remained stable. Now something new had appeared. Something unpredictable. Something dangerous. Humanity. The Zephyrian Empire reacts. In a crystal palace floating between distant stars, the Zephyrian Emperor received the report. His body was made entirely of living energy, constantly shifting and glowing with light. As he finished reading the translated battle logs, his form flickered with curiosity. Fascinating, the Emperor murmured to his advisors. A young race that destroys a Corvan fleet using primitive weapons. His glowing eyes brightened. We must learn more about these humans. The Nexari merchants react. In the vast trading halls of the Nexari Collective, tentacled merchants whispered excitedly. A race capable of rapidly developing new weapons would require massive resources. Raw materials. Industrial supplies. Rare metals. The Nexari sensed opportunity. Fortunes could be made. Trade routes would shift. The galaxy's economy might soon revolve around one small blue planet. The Corvan response. But in the depths of Corvan space, the reaction was very different. The hive mind raged. No lesser species had ever humiliated the Federation so completely. The humans had shattered centuries of military dominance. This insult could not go unanswered. War fleets began gathering in the darkness between the stars. Earth prepares. Back on Earth, Captain Morrison stood inside the briefing chamber at Lunar Base. Representatives from every nation on the planet filled the room. Generals, scientists, political leaders. The first contact protocols written decades ago suddenly seemed naive and outdated. Morrison cleared her throat. Ladies and gentlemen, I have good news and bad news. The room fell silent. The good news is that we are not alone in the universe, and we just proved we can defend ourselves." She paused. "The bad news is that we probably just started the biggest war in human history." The room exploded with questions. But Morrison raised her hand. "The real question is simple." She activated a holographic star map. "Do we hide behind our star and hope they leave us alone?" The map zoomed out, revealing the massive territories of the three galactic powers. "Or do we step into the galaxy and show everyone that humanity is not going to be pushed around?" Admiral Chen, commander of Earth's defense forces, stepped forward. "The decision has already been made." He looked around the room. "We're not hiding. If there's going to be a war," he paused, "we'll fight it on our terms." Morrison nodded and expanded the star chart further. Hundreds of unknown systems appeared. "Then we'd better get ready." She looked around the room at the leaders of Earth. "Because once this news spreads, the entire galaxy is going to want to know what makes humans so dangerous." She smiled slightly. "And we're going to show them." Humanity meets the galaxy. Within days, news of the Corvan defeat had reached every corner of known space. A new player had entered the galactic stage, and everyone wanted to understand them. One of the first to arrive was a diplomatic fleet from the Zephyrian Empire. Their ambassador, Velta, stood aboard his flagship as Earth slowly grew larger on the viewscreen. "The reports from the Corvan survivor are difficult to believe," his military advisor said nervously. "How could such a primitive species destroy an entire fleet?" Velta's glowing form pulsed thoughtfully. "Perhaps they are not as primitive as we assumed. The Emperor wishes to understand these humans before deciding how to deal with them." His light flickered slightly. "If guided properly, they may serve the Empire well." First peaceful contact. The Zephyrian ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. Unlike the dark metal Corvan warships, these vessels appeared to be made of crystallized light. Their hulls shimmered with complex energy patterns that made human eyes ache if they stared too long. At the United Nations building, a reception hall had been constructed for the historic meeting. World leaders waited nervously. President Martinez stood at the front of the room. No one knew exactly what to expect. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the center of the chamber without any visible arrival. The Zephyrian ambassador had materialized directly inside the room. His body was humanoid in shape, but made entirely of swirling blue-white energy. When he spoke, his voice echoed softly from every direction. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Ambassador Velta of the Zephyrian Empire. We come as friends and protectors." President Martinez stepped forward, trying not to show his unease. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. We are honored by your visit." Velta's form shimmered calmly. "Your recent conflict with the Corvan Federation has brought your world to our attention. The galaxy is a dangerous place for young civilizations. The Empire has long served as guardian to lesser species, offering protection and guidance." Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's chief xenobiologist, frowned slightly. "Lesser species." Velta's light brightened politely. "Do not take offense. All civilizations must begin somewhere. The Zephyrians have traveled the stars for over 50,000 years. We have learned much about survival." General Kim, head of planetary defense, spoke next. "And what would this protection cost us?" Velta answered calmly. "Very little. You would place your military forces under Imperial command. Your industries would support the greater needs of the Empire. Your people would be educated in proper galactic society." The room fell silent, because everyone in that room understood exactly what he meant. It wasn't protection. It was control. And humanity had never been very good at accepting control. "In return," Ambassador Velta continued calmly, "you would be safe from threats like the Corvan Federation." The room fell silent. President Martinez slowly looked around the chamber. Every advisor, every general, every scientist carried the same expression. They were not being offered protection. They were being offered servitude. "We appreciate your offer," Martinez finally said carefully. "But humanity prefers to handle its own defense." Velta's glowing energy form pulsed slightly, as if surprised. "You misunderstand the situation," he replied. "Without Imperial protection, the Corvan Federation will return in far greater numbers." "Your recent victory was impressive," he admitted. "But it was only against a small scout fleet. When the real war fleets arrive, your small ships will not be enough." General Kim folded his arms. "Then we'll build bigger ships." Velta's voice sharpened. "With what resources? What knowledge? You are children playing with toys while adults wage war with weapons capable of cracking entire planets." Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped forward calmly. "Maybe we're children," she said. "But we're fast learners. And children sometimes see solutions that adults miss." Before Velta could respond, alarms suddenly echoed throughout the building. Every screen in the room lit up with the same warning. A new fleet had entered Earth's solar system. The traders arrive. The ships were unmistakable. They belonged to the Nexary Collective. Unlike the elegant Zephyrian vessels or the brutal Corvan warships, Nexary ships resembled gigantic sea creatures drifting through space. Their hulls curved like living organisms. Long tentacle-like docking arms extended from every surface, and glowing advertisements flashed across their hulls in dozens of alien languages. At the center of the fleet was the flagship of trade Prince Sex Mura. He had come personally, not with threats, not with protection, but with contracts. His image suddenly appeared on screens across the planet. "Humans of Earth," the trade prince announced, his voice smooth and cheerful. "The Nexary Collective congratulates you on your recent victory. Such military prowess deserves proper reward. We are prepared to offer exclusive trade agreements that will benefit both our peoples." His appearance was unsettling in its own way. The alien looked like a cross between an octopus and a jellyfish. His translucent body floated inside a tank of liquid aboard his ship, while a hologram projected his image for human viewers. As he spoke, his tentacles moved in complex patterns that even the translation system struggled to interpret. "We offer advanced technologies, raw materials, and manufactured goods," he continued, "in exchange for simple commodities and modest labor agreements. We have heard humans are very hardworking. This quality is valuable in galactic commerce." The hidden trap. Admiral Morrison, recently promoted after her victory against the Corvan fleet, studied the trade contracts presented by the Nexary. They were enormous documents, hundreds of pages long. Every paragraph was filled with legal clauses that seemed to contradict each other. "I'm not an economist," Morrison admitted to the negotiation team. "But this looks like a very complicated way to turn us into slaves." Dr. Vasquez nodded. "Look at Clause 47. They offer to provide raw materials for our shipbuilding. But Clause 93 forces us to sell them finished ships below market value. And Clause 128 gives them exclusive control over our shipping routes." Economics Minister Parkside. "It's a classic debt trap. They give us just enough help to make us dependent, then slowly take control of our entire economy." President Martinez rubbed his temples. "So the Zephyrians want us as soldiers. And the Nexary want us as workers." He looked up. "What comes next?" "The Corvan return." As if summoned by his words, the third arrival appeared suddenly in the solar system. Not a fleet, just one ship. But it was enormous, 10 times larger than anything humanity had ever built. Its hull was pitch black, absorbing light like a hole in space itself. A message broadcast across every channel: "Surrender immediately, or face annihilation. You have insulted the Corvan Federation. This insult requires blood." Admiral Morrison stared at the tactical display. The alien warship was massive, large enough to carry thousands of fighter craft, powerful enough to devastate continents. This was no scout vessel. This was a true Corvan warship. "How long until our new ships are ready?" she asked her chief engineer. Commander Torres shook his head. "The first batch won't be finished for another month. The new designs are still being tested." Morrison sighed. "We don't have a month." She turned toward the communications officer. Send a message to all Earth ships. Full scramble. Everything we have. The officer hesitated. Admiral, our entire fleet is only 12 ships. That thing could destroy us without even slowing down. Morrison nodded calmly. Probably. But we're not going to make it easy. Terror of the Void. The Corvan warship was named Terror of the Void. Its commander, High Admiral the Var, had conquered 17 alien civilizations. He had come to Earth expecting surrender. Instead, he found humans preparing to fight. They're actually going to attack us, his tactical officer reported in disbelief. Their entire fleet is moving to intercept. The Var clicked his mandibles with satisfaction. Fools. They learned nothing from our last encounter. Show them the power of a true Corvan warship. The Terror of the Void opened fire. Gigantic particle beams ripped through space, powerful enough to slice through asteroid fields. Human ships scattered in every direction. But they did not retreat. They attacked. Plan crazy. Admiral Morrison had studied every detail of the previous battle. She believed she understood the difference between humans and the rest of the galaxy. Other species followed traditions. Humans invented new rules every time they fought. All ships, she transmitted. Implement Plan Crazy. Plan Crazy wasn't an official strategy. It was simply the last option when every reasonable plan had failed. The UEES Defiance led the charge directly toward the Corvan supership. 3 other vessels followed. They flew straight through enemy fire. Several direct hits slammed into their hulls. But the new armor held. And the ships kept coming. At the last possible moment, all 4 ships launched their entire missile payload. Hundreds of nuclear warheads detonated across the alien ship's surface. For a moment, space lit up like a newborn star. When the light faded, the Terror of the Void was still there. But its armor was cracked. Atmosphere leaked through dozens of glowing holes. Impossible. The Var roared. No one has ever damaged a Terror-class warship with primitive nuclear weapons. Sir, the tactical officer whispered. They're attacking again. They fight like madmen. No formation. No discipline. But the Var began to realize the truth. The humans did have coordination. Just not the kind the Corvan expected. Instead of a hive mind controlling everything, each human captain made independent decisions while supporting the overall attack. It was chaos. But it was controlled chaos. The final assault. The Terror of the Void unleashed every weapon it had. Energy beams and plasma bolts filled space. Several human ships were badly damaged. One vessel, the UEES Courage, lost half its hull. But it still launched a final missile spread into the Corvan ship's engines. Multiple hull breaches, the damage officer reported. Primary weapons offline. Engine output reduced to 30%. The Var stared in disbelief. 8 human ships had crippled his superwarship. How? The answer came moments later. The human fleet regrouped. This time they attacked differently. They surrounded the Corvan ship and began firing precise, coordinated salvos. Each shot struck the same damaged sections. Piece by piece, they began tearing the massive warship apart. Sir, his second-in-command urged, we must retreat. If we stay here, they will destroy us. The Var clicked his mandibles in rage. But he was not a fool. Signal withdrawal. Full retreat. The Terror of the Void limped away from Earth, leaving behind burning debris and a shattered reputation. For the second time, humans had defeated a Corvan warship. But the victory came with a price. 3 human ships had been destroyed. 2 more were badly damaged. Earth now had only 7 operational warships remaining. Aftermath. Admiral Morrison stood silently on the bridge of the Defiance, reading the casualty reports. 43 people had died defending Earth. And she knew this was only the beginning. Admiral, the communications officer suddenly said. We're receiving transmissions. From who? All 3 alien powers. They all want to talk. Morrison sighed. The Zephyrians probably want to increase their protection offer. The Nexary will try to sell us replacement ships. And the Corvan. She didn't finish the sentence. Put them through. The main screen split into 3 sections. Ambassador Velta of the Zephyrian Empire, Trade Prince Sex Mura of the Nexary Collective, and High Admiral Thavar of the Corvan Federation. Velta spoke first. Humans of Earth, your battle prowess has impressed the Empire. We would like to revise our previous offer. Perhaps a more equal partnership could be arranged. Sex Mura spoke next. The Collective is prepared to offer premium contracts for your military services. Many civilizations would pay well for protection from human warships. Then Thavar spoke. You have won 2 battles. But the Federation commands thousands of fleets. Your luck will not last forever. Morrison looked at all 3 of them. And suddenly she understood something. They were afraid. For the first time in centuries, the ancient powers of the galaxy were uncertain. And humanity was the reason why. Gentlemen, Morrison said calmly, you seem to believe we want to join your wars. You're wrong. We don't want to be your soldiers. Or your workers. Or your enemies. We just want to build our own future. Velta replied quietly, that is not possible. The galaxy does not allow neutrality. You must choose a side. Or others will choose for you. Morrison smiled. It was the smile humans made right before doing something dangerous. Then I guess we'll have to change how the galaxy works. The transmission ended. And across the stars, ancient empires began to realize something terrifying. Their carefully balanced universe was about to become much more complicated. On Earth, the real work was just beginning. 6 months after humanity's first contact with the galactic powers, the rules of war had already begun to change in ways no one in the galaxy had anticipated. The alien civilizations believed they understood space warfare. For centuries they had fought their battles with strict formations, predictable strategies, and overwhelming force. But humans kept proving them wrong. Captain Marcus Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UEES Indomitable, watching the enemy through the tactical display. In the darkness of space, the Corvan supply convoy stretched like a chain of metallic beads, 30 cargo ships protected by 12 heavily armed warships. For most civilizations, attacking such a force with a single vessel would have been suicide. But Rodriguez wasn't planning a traditional attack. Range to target? He asked calmly. 40,000 kilometers and closing, the weapons officer replied. They've detected us, sir. Escort ships are moving to intercept. Rodriguez nodded slightly. Perfect. Let them come. The Indomitable was one of Earth's newest warships. Built using lessons learned from captured alien technology, it was faster than anything the Corvans possessed. Its weapons were engineered to exploit weaknesses in alien armor designs. But the ship's greatest advantage wasn't technology. It was the crew. Unlike most alien fleets that relied on rigid command structures or hive mind coordination, human crews were trained to think independently, improvise, and adapt. All stop, Rodriguez ordered suddenly. Let them think we're surrendering. The massive ship drifted to a halt. Across the void, the Corvan escort ships approached cautiously. Their formation was flawless, weapons fully charged. Through their hive mind connection, they shared a single unified thought. Capture the human vessel. Learn its secrets. They had no idea what was about to happen. Rodriguez watched the distance shrink. Now, he said quietly, the Indomitable didn't fire its weapons. Instead, dozens of tiny objects launched from hidden ports and scattered into space. On Corvan sensors they appeared to be nothing more than debris, small fragments drifting aimlessly in the void. The escort ships ignored them, focusing all attention on the apparently disabled human vessel. But the objects weren't debris. They were humans. Each one wore a powered combat suit equipped with thruster packs and carried a compact fusion charge. Lieutenant Sarah Kim felt her heartbeat thunder in her ears as she guided her suit toward the nearest Corvan warship. Even by human standards, this mission was insane. No military in the galaxy used infantry tactics in space combat. Boarding operations between moving warships were considered impossible. But humans had never cared much for what the galaxy considered impossible. Boarding teams, sound off. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm channel. Team Alpha in position. Team Beta ready. Team Charlie standing by. 40 armored humans silently attached themselves to the hulls of the Corvan escort ships using magnetic clamps. Plasma cutters flared briefly as they burned through alien armor. Then the soldiers slipped inside like ghosts. The Corvan crews never saw it coming. The hive mind was designed to share information instantly between all members. But it was never meant to handle chaos. And humans brought chaos with them. Suddenly 12 different ships began reporting intruders in multiple locations. Alarms blared across the fleet as boarding teams moved unpredictably through corridors, sabotaging systems and eliminating resistance. Weapons that the Corvans had never seen before tore through security drones and armored guards. Engine room secured, Lieutenant Kim reported, placing fusion charges across the power core. 30 seconds to detonation. Across the convoy, similar reports poured in. The humans weren't trying to capture the ships. They were sabotaging them from the inside, then escaping before the explosions. All teams, extraction in 10 seconds, Rodriguez ordered. The boarding teams activated their emergency thrusters and blasted away from the ships. Seconds later, 12 escort vessels exploded almost simultaneously. Blinding flashes lit the darkness of space as the Corvan defensive screen vanished. The cargo ships were now completely defenseless. But Rodriguez wasn't finished. Launch missiles, he ordered. Target the cargo holds, not the ships. Precision warheads streaked from the Indomitable. Each missile struck its target with surgical accuracy. Cargo bays ruptured. Supplies, fuel cells, weapons components, and food stores spilled into the vacuum of space. Entire months of logistics drifted away into nothingness. Mission accomplished, Rodriguez said calmly. The Corvans just lost 6 months' worth of supplies for their border fleets, and they still have no idea how we did it. This was the new kind of warfare humanity had introduced to the galaxy. Humans didn't fight for glory. They fought to disrupt, to confuse, to force their enemies to question everything they thought they knew about war. The campaign that followed became known as the Broken Chain Offensive. For 3 relentless months, Rodriguez's strike fleet targeted the Federation's weakest points. Supply lines vanished. Communication networks collapsed. Industrial facilities exploded without warning. Human raiders destroyed food convoys headed for Corvan colonies, leaving entire worlds starving. They sabotaged quantum communication arrays that allowed the hive mind to coordinate across interstellar distances. Shipyards burned. Manufacturing plants were crippled. And everywhere they went, humans freed prisoners. For centuries, the Corvans had enslaved other species to work in their vast industrial complexes. Human strike teams stormed these prison camps with a ferocity that terrified their enemies. When liberated workers told stories of human soldiers who fought like demons to save complete strangers, Earth's reputation began spreading across the galaxy. Back on Lunar Base, Admiral Chen studied the latest strategic reports. In just 6 months, humanity had grown from 8 operational warships to a fleet of 40 vessels, built using a combination of human innovation and captured alien technology. The Corvans are pulling back from 3 sectors, Colonel Park reported. They can't maintain their positions without the supplies Rodriguez keeps destroying. Chen nodded slowly. And the Zephyrians? The Nexari? Both are getting nervous. The Zephyrians are offering better alliance terms. The Nexari are sending us free samples of their technology. They want to stay on our good side. But Chen wasn't reassured. We're winning tactically, she said quietly. But strategically we're still outnumbered 1,000 to 1. If those 3 powers ever unite against us, we're finished. They won't, said Dr. Elena Vasquez as she entered the room. They've been enemies for too long. The moment one of them appears weak, the others will attack. Chen turned toward her. What about the new technologies? Vasquez smiled. the proud smile of a scientist who had just made a breakthrough. You should see this. Inside the expanded laboratories of Lunar Base, something remarkable was happening. Human scientists were working alongside alien refugees and defectors. Different species, different technologies, different ideas. And together they were creating innovations none of them could have achieved alone. One alien in particular caught Chen's attention. A small insect-like creature worked beside a human engineer at a console. She's called Seven of Thousands, Vasquez explained. A Corvan who somehow developed individual consciousness instead of being controlled by the hive mind. A Corvan, working with us? Chen asked. With us, Vasquez corrected gently. Seven has been invaluable. Chen watched the alien researcher move with curiosity and independence, something impossible for a hive species. It was the first sign that the galaxy itself might be changing, and humanity was the catalyst. Meanwhile, far across the stars, the galaxy's great powers were beginning to realize the same terrifying truth. Humans were not just another new species. They were an idea, and ideas were far more dangerous than fleets. Deep within Corvan space, war leader Prime Vector assembled the largest fleet in his civilization's history. 3,000 warships gathered in the darkness between stars. Enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. Their mission was simple: erase humanity. Completely. But on Earth, humans were already preparing their next move. When Captain Rodriguez returned from his mission, he found the planet transformed. Shipyards once under construction were now producing warships at an astonishing rate. 80 combat vessels, Admiral Chen told him. And more every week. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. And the colony ships? Chen smiled. We're not just defending Earth anymore, Marcus. We're expanding. Human colonies had already been established across 12 star systems, scattered strategically across space, each capable of surviving independently. Rodriguez studied the map. A good strategy, he admitted. But when the Corvans return, they'll bring everything they have. Chen nodded. I know. That's why we won't be here when they arrive. Rodriguez looked at her, confused. Then where will we be? Chen activated a holographic display showing the locations of every major alien fleet. We're going to do something they'll never expect. Rodriguez frowned. What? Chen's voice was calm. Instead of waiting for them to attack us, we're going to attack all three empires at the same time. Rodriguez stared at her. Admiral, that's insane. Chen smiled slightly. I know. That's exactly why it might work. And across the galaxy, the old order was about to begin collapsing. It started with a single message broadcast into Corvan space. A message sent by an individual who was never supposed to exist. 7 of thousands. The transmission was brief, but its impact was enormous. For the first time in their species' history, a Corvan spoke as an individual rather than as part of the hive mind. I am 7 of thousands, and I choose freedom. Her voice echoed across thousands of worlds through the vast Corvan communication network. For generations, the hive mind has told you that we are nothing without the collective, she continued. That we cannot think. That we cannot choose. That we exist only to serve. There was a brief pause before she spoke again. That is a lie. We can think. We can choose. We can become more than drones. The message should have been impossible to broadcast. Corvan communication systems were completely controlled by the hive mind. No single individual was supposed to have access to them. But Seven had help. Human cyber specialists and Nexary communication engineers had worked together, combining their knowledge to crack the seemingly impenetrable network. Within hours, the consequences began to ripple across Corvan space. Reports flooded in from dozens of sectors. Individual Corvans were hesitating before following orders. Some questioned commands coming from the collective consciousness. A few even refused them entirely. In isolated cases, Corvan workers secretly helped enslaved species escape their labor camps. For the first time in their history, doubt had entered the hive. Deep within Corvan territory, War leader Prime Vector felt the disturbance spreading through the collective mind like a disease. "Impossible," he growled, his chitinous armor scraping against the floor of the command chamber. "Individual thought is a genetic defect. It cannot spread." But this wasn't a genetic mutation. It was an idea. And ideas could travel faster than any virus. Across Corvan space, the simple realization began to take root. They had a choice. The shockwaves of Seven's message did not stop with the Corvans. In the radiant crystal cities of the Zephyrian Empire, younger energy beings began questioning ancient traditions. For thousands of years they had believed it was their duty to guide and control lesser species. But now some wondered. What if those species had something to teach them instead? A young Zephyrian noble named Lord Zihan became one of the first to act on that curiosity. His luminous energy form flickered with excitement as he materialized on the human colony of New Geneva. The colony was unlike anything he had ever seen. Refugees from dozens of species lived there together. Humans, former Corvan drones, traders from the Nexary Collective, and even a few quiet Zephyrian observers. Instead of conflict, there was cooperation. Instead of domination, there was partnership. "This is extraordinary," Zihan said as he walked beside Dr. Elena Vasquez through the colony's research complex. "I've studied 100 civilizations," he continued, watching a laboratory where scientists of 3 different species work together. "But I've never seen enemies share knowledge like this. How is it possible?" Dr. Vasquez smiled as she watched a human engineer collaborate with a reformed Corvan technician and a young Zephyrian physicist. "Because we learned something important," she replied. "Competition can make you stronger, but cooperation makes you unstoppable." Zihan stayed for hours, observing their work. Instead of arguing over who was right, the researchers combined their ideas. When one approach failed, another species would offer a different perspective. Together, they solved problems that none of them could have solved alone. "Your empire would call this chaos," Zihan said eventually. "Maybe," Vasquez replied. "But it works." Word of these strange human experiments began spreading across the galaxy. Soon aliens from many civilizations started visiting human colonies. Some came as refugees. Others arrived as traders, researchers, or simply curious observers. What they found challenged everything they believed about how civilizations should function. The Nexary Collective was particularly disturbed by these developments. Their entire economy was based on controlling trade routes and creating artificial scarcity. But humans did something completely different. Within their colonies, resources were shared freely among communities. Trade with outsiders was conducted fairly, without manipulation or exploitation. According to Nexary economic theory, this system should have collapsed almost immediately. Instead, it produced astonishing prosperity. Human colonies rapidly developed their own industries instead of relying on Nexary imports. Even worse, they began teaching other species how to do the same. Trade Prince Sex Mura stared at the economic reports with growing frustration. "The humans are destroying our business model," he announced to the Council of Trade Princes. "If every species becomes self-sufficient, what will they need us for?" Silence filled the chamber. Finally, another trade prince spoke. "Perhaps, we need a new business model." All eyes turned toward her. Trade Prince Yilthita was known throughout the collective for her conservative views. The idea that she would suggest changing Nexary economic principles was shocking. "What exactly do you mean?" Sex Mura asked carefully. Yilthita's tentacles moved slowly as she considered her words. "The humans have revealed something we never considered. Instead of profiting from scarcity and dependence, we could profit from abundance and partnership. If we help our customers succeed, they will have more resources to trade with us." The chamber erupted with shocked murmurs. It was a radical concept. Under normal circumstances, it would have been dismissed instantly. But these were not normal circumstances. The old systems were beginning to fail. Even the most traditional Nexary merchants could see the change coming. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Admiral Chen faced a very different challenge. Human space was expanding faster than anyone had predicted. "We now have 43 colonies," Colonel Park reported during a strategic briefing. and 12 more will be established next month. Our population is spreading across a region larger than any single alien empire. Chen leaned back thoughtfully. That's good for our survival, she said. But dangerous for our unity. The farther humanity spread, the harder it would become to maintain shared values and cooperation. The solution came from an unexpected source. 7 of thousands. Having once been part of a hive mind, she possessed a unique understanding of both collective coordination and individual freedom. Working with human sociologists and political theorists, she helped design an entirely new system of interstellar governance. The key is voluntary association, Seven explained during a conference call connecting leaders from dozens of colonies. Each community chooses to participate in the larger human civilization. They are not forced. Unity comes from shared values, not imposed control. Captain Rodriguez, attending the meeting from his flagship, nodded. It's similar to our fleet tactics, he said. Each ship operates independently, but they all support the same mission. The system that emerged was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human colonies were connected through mutual aid, cooperation, and shared principles. Yet each colony remained free to develop its own culture, technology, and solutions to local challenges. At first glance it appeared chaotic, but in practice, it proved incredibly resilient. When Corvan raiders attacked the colony of New Harmony, 17 other settlements immediately sent aid without waiting for central command. When a deadly plague struck the mining world Titan's Rest, scientists across human space collaborated to create a cure in record time. The alien powers watched these developments with growing concern. For centuries, the great empires had maintained dominance by keeping other species divided and dependent. But humanity was demonstrating a dangerous alternative: cooperation. The situation finally reached a breaking point when a massive fleet appeared at the edge of human territory. For the first time in centuries, the Zephyrians, Corvans, and Nexari had formed a joint task force. More than 500 warships drifted in formation outside human space. Admiral Chen received their ultimatum aboard the UES Terra, the most advanced ship in the human fleet. On the main screen appeared 3 alien leaders. Despite their different forms and cultures, their message was unified. Emperor Luxandra of the Zephyrian Empire spoke first. People of Earth, your influence has grown beyond acceptable limits. You are destabilizing the balance of galactic civilization. Then Trade Prince Sex Mura added coldly, your economic practices are dismantling established trade systems. You are teaching lesser species to reject the structures that have maintained galactic order for millennia. The final voice belonged to the Corvan War Command. You have infected our people with dangerous ideas. Freedom, choice, independence. These concepts threaten the stability of the entire galaxy. Chen listened silently. Finally, she leaned forward and answered. You're right, she said calmly. We are changing the galaxy. Then she gave a small smile. And the best part? You can't stop it anymore. War leader Prime Vector finished the ultimatum. This cannot be allowed to continue. You will submit to joint administration by our 3 governments, or you will be eliminated as a threat to galactic order. Admiral Chen looked at the 3 alien leaders and felt a moment of perfect clarity. This was what they had truly feared all along, not human military power, but human ideas. You want to know why you're really here? She asked calmly. It's because your own people are starting to think for themselves, and that terrifies you. Absurd, Luxandra replied, though his energy form flickered with uncertainty. Is it? Chen said quietly. How many Corvinans have broken free from the hive mind in the last month? How many young Zephyrians are questioning why they must control other species? And how many Nexari traders are beginning to wonder if there might be better ways to create prosperity? Silence filled the chamber. Chen could see the truth in their expressions, even through translation systems and shifting energy forms. You're not here to stop a human invasion, she continued. You're here to stop a revolution of ideas. But here's the problem with ideas: you can't destroy them with warships. We can kill the people who spread them, Vector snarled. You can try, Chen replied. "But we're not the same species you attacked a year ago. We learned from you. We adapted your technologies and improved them. More importantly," she glanced toward the tactical display, "we're not alone anymore." As if summoned by her words, new signals suddenly appeared on the screen. Ships were emerging from hyperspace all around the combined alien fleet. But they were not human vessels. Lord Zekon commanded a squadron of Zephyrian ships crewed by energy beings who had chosen cooperation over domination. 7 of thousands led a fleet of free Corvans who had broken away from the hive mind. And Trade Prince Theta arrived with Nexary vessels filled with merchants and citizens who believed in fair trade and shared prosperity. "Impossible," Luxandra whispered. "They would never rebel against their own kind." "They're not rebelling," Chen corrected calmly. "They're evolving." The combined human and allied fleet now outnumbered the official task force nearly 2-1. But the numbers weren't what mattered most. For the first time in galactic history, a multi-species alliance had formed, not based on conquest or fear, but on shared values. Captain Rodriguez, commanding the mixed squadron of human and free Corvan ships, opened a communication channel. "This is your final warning. Leave human space immediately, or face the consequences." Prime Vector's mandibles clicked with rage. "You think defectors and rebels can challenge the true powers of this galaxy? I will show you the cost of defiance." He ordered his fleet to attack. But something unprecedented happened. Nearly half of his ships hesitated. Across the invasion fleet, individual Corvans were making their own decisions for the first time. Some Zephyrian captains questioned their orders. Even Nexary traders began to reconsider which side they stood on. The battle that followed was unlike any conflict in galactic history. It was not a war between species. It was a war between ideas. On one side were those who believed in hierarchy, domination, and control. On the other were those who believed in cooperation, freedom, and the strength that came from unity and diversity. The old powers had superior weapons. But they could not overcome the chaos that independent thinking had unleashed within their ranks. Corvan ships broke formation as crews argued about orders. Zephyrian vessels flickered with uncertainty. Nexary captains abandoned battle formations entirely. Admiral Chen watched the conflict unfold and realized that humanity had already achieved its greatest victory. They had not just defended their territory. They had changed the galaxy. "All ships, cease fire," she ordered when it became clear the enemy fleet was collapsing into disarray. Her tactical officer looked at her in surprise. "Admiral." "The fighting is over," Chen said quietly. "Now comes the difficult part." She opened a channel to every ship, friend and foe alike. "This is Admiral Chen of the human space fleet. To those who wish to continue the old ways of conquest and control, you are free to leave. But to those who want to build something better, something based on cooperation and mutual respect, you are welcome to stay and help us create a new future for the galaxy." It was an offer that would change everything. 3 years later, the galaxy looked nothing like it had before humanity entered the ancient conflict. The old order had not simply collapsed. It had transformed. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood inside the central chamber of Research Station Alpha, a massive facility orbiting the neutron star known as Beacon 1. Around her, scientists from dozens of species worked side by side on the most ambitious project ever attempted: decoding the final message of the progenitors. The station itself was a masterpiece of cooperative engineering. Human structural design formed the framework. Zephyrian energy systems powered the entire complex. Corvan computational networks processed unimaginable volumes of data. And Nexary material science made the impossible structures stable. But the true miracle was not technological. It was the fact that former enemies now worked together as equals. "Any progress on the quantum resonance patterns?" Vasquez asked. "Becoming clearer," replied 7 of thousands, now one of the galaxy's leading experts on progenitor technology. Her individual consciousness allowed her to see patterns the hive mind had never noticed. "But we may need Lord Zekon's expertise in energy manipulation for the final breakthrough." Moments later Zekon approached, his energy form glowing with excitement. "Dr. Vasquez." I believe we have discovered something extraordinary. The progenitors didn't just leave us a message. They left us a warning. The discovery that followed would change everything the galaxy believed about its history. According to the ancient records, the progenitors had not been the first advanced civilization. They had been the last survivors of a galactic community spanning millions of worlds and hundreds of species. That civilization had been destroyed by something that came from beyond the galaxy itself. A force so alien and relentless that the progenitors had only one name for it: the Hunger. According to the records, the Hunger appeared once every 50,000 years, consuming entire galaxies before moving on. And based on the mathematical models, it was coming back soon. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The wars that had divided the galaxy for centuries suddenly seemed meaningless compared to what was approaching. How did the progenitors survive? Asked Trade Prince Theta. They didn't. 7 of thousands answered bluntly. They hid a few colonies, but their civilization was destroyed. Dr. Vasquez activated a holographic projection of an enormous starship. This was their final plan, she explained. A generation ship designed to carry the genetic patterns and cultural knowledge of every species in the galaxy. When the Hunger arrived, it would flee to another galaxy and wait for the danger to pass. Did it work? General Kim asked. We don't know, she said. The ship launched just before the final attack. After that, the records end. Emperor Luxandra finally spoke. So our only choices are to hide, or to run. Vasquez looked around the room. Actually, there might be a third option. Captain Rodriguez leaned forward. And that is? Vasquez smiled slightly. The progenitors fought separately, even when they tried to cooperate. But we've already proven something they never managed to do. Admiral Chen understood immediately. You're talking about true integration. Exactly, Vasquez said. Not an alliance, a unified civilization. And then that decision changed the future of the galaxy forever. When the Hunger finally arrived, for the first time it faced a galaxy that was not divided. A civilization that was not weakened by its differences, but made stronger because of them. After months of war, when the last enemy ships finally fled back into the void, Admiral Chen looked up at the stars. The galaxy had survived. But the greatest victory was not survival. The greatest victory was that dozens of species that had once been enemies had now become a single civilization. And from that day forward, the galaxy followed a new philosophy. Cooperation is not weakness. It is the greatest strength in the universe. Rocket.